Good day, everyone. I am Elton John Bongkalis. I am the reporter for today, and this is the continuation of our topic, which is Rizal's life abroad. Rizal's life in Madrid. On September 1882, Rizal moved to the capital of city of Spain to continue his studies. Rizal enrolled at the Universidad Central de Madrid on November 3, 1882. He took up philosophy and letters and medicine. While studying in the university, he also enrolled at the Academy of San Carlos, taking up painting and sculpture, and languages and French, German, and English. He also took up shooting and fencing at the Hall of Sands and Carbonell. Círculo Hispano-Filipino was a social organization meant to create reforms to the Philippines. The members were mostly Filipino elderlies who were exiled of 1872. It was led by one Ataide and retired army officer and a Philippine-born Spaniards. They conducted informal programs which included poetry, reading, and debates. While in Madrid, sent a letter to Don Francisco about joining the Círculo Hispano, but later on, he told him that the society was disbanded because of number 1. The differences among its members who were young students, expatriates, and retired colonials. And number 2, due to their age difference, it was difficult for Rizal during his stay in Madrid. It is said that the Mason view of life is that knowledge should be achieved by light of reason and universal brotherhood of men. He became a Master Mason in Lodge Solidaridad on November 15, 1890. Hence Rizal was immediately removed from the Catholic Church. Rizal's love interest in Madrid was Consuelo, Don Pablo's daughter. Because of her good traits and beautiful smile, he got attracted and fell for her, but he held back his feeling for Consuelo, knowing that he was engaged with Leonor Rivera in the Philippines. Aside from that, this Rizal did not want to ruin his friendship with Eduardo Dilete, who is the letter's love interest. Before leaving Madrid in 1883, Rizal composed a poem that expressed his admiration to Consuelo, entitled E la Señorita. On June 25, 1884, in honor of Juan Luna and Felix Hidalgo, Rizal made a speech and a brindis which gave him praises from the public audience because, for the first time, they heard a Filipino delivering a speech fluently in the Castilian language. Both Filipino painters joined the National Exposition of Fine Arts. In his speech, Rizal said that the intelligence knows no race and the prizes they get were results of both Philippines and Spain. He also hoped that someday Spain will accept the changes that the Filipino have to offer. The speech was published in the newspaper El Liberal. Rizal's life in other countries. In Paris, Rizal arrived in Paris on November 1885. At that time, he was 24 years old and a full-fledged surgeon. He decided to migrate to Paris to specialize in ophthalmology, but prior to doing so, he went to visit Maximo Viola, a friend from San Miguel, Bulacan. He also worked as an assistant to Dr. Luis de Wicker's eye clinic for 4 months. During his stay, Rizal knew how to conduct the operation of the eye, its elements, and the different techniques of eye operation. In Germany, due to high cost of living, Rizal left Paris for Germany on February 1886. He arrived at an old university town of Heidelberg. He worked as an assistant for Dr. Otto Becker at the University Eye Hospital. It is where Rizal mastered the technique of diagnosing eye ailments, which he learned from Dr. Louis de Ricker. But before transferring to the university, Rizal resided in a German boarding house where he became friends with number of German law students. Jose Rizal returned to Calamba. Rizal lived 5 years of his life abroad and away from his loved ones. He left Rome and rode to train going to Marseilles, France on July 3, 1887. Then he boarded the Demna, the vessel that ferried him to Saigon, and from Saigon he transferred to the steamer Hapong in Vietnam and reached Manila on August 5, 1887. He stayed in Manila for 3 days and tried to visit and call Isabelo de los Reyes twice, but unfortunately, he was unable to reach him. After 6 months in the Philippines, he left the country and went to Hong Kong. Meanwhile, the friars forced all the tenants to leave the Dominican hacienda as a revenge. The Rizal family was the first among the tenants to be evicted because they refused to pay the rent and interest. Terrero, on the other hand, was replaced by Lieutenant General Valeriano Wheeler, who was grateful of the role of the friars in the conquest of Luzon and Visayas. He pointed out that religion should be a means of the government in the aforementioned islands in the Philippines. Trip to Hong Kong. Rizal arrived in Hong Kong on February 8, 1888. His fellow Filipinos, namely Jose Maria Basa, Balbino Mauricio, and Manuel Riate, who were all exiled in 1872, met Rizal. In Hong Kong, he was able to study the Chinese language, Chinese drama and theater, Chinese culture, and Chinese values. Rizal even became friends with some Spaniards that were based in Hong Kong. Trip to Japan and short romance with Osisan. Rizal arrived in Yokohama, Japan, and stayed at Tokyo Hotel on February 28, 1888. For a few days, he was then invited by Juan Perez Caballero to live at the Spanish legation for a month. On March 7, 1887, he left the hotel and lived at the Spanish legation. During his stay in Japan, he studied the Japanese language or Nippongo, Japanese culture, theater, martial arts, and visited Japanese provinces. Rizal appreciated the cleanliness, politeness, and industry of Japanese. Rizal then met Osisan and their romance began when he lived at the Spanish legation. They became friends and later on developed to become lovers. Trip to United States of America. Abroad steamer on April 28, 1888. The entire boat was quarantined when it stopped in San Francisco because accordingly, the ship come from a country where cholera was epidemic. Rizal knew that his was not the fact. He found out the ship was hoped for Chinese and Japanese laborers who accepted cheap labor, replacing the American laborers. Rizal went to different cities in America like Reno, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, Chicago, Albania, and New York City. He was very much impressed with all the cities for its natural beauty, the hardworking Americans, the material progress, and the high standard of living, and the opportunities offered for poor immigrants for a better life. Trip in London. After Rizal's trip to the United States of America, he left New York City on May 16, 1888 and arrived in Liverpool, England on May 24 of the same year. He stayed for a day at Adelphi Hotel and left for London the following day. He was welcomed by Dr. Antonio Maria Regidor on May 25, 1888 and stayed as a guest in their home. Dr. Ridor was an exile of 1872 and practicing lawyer in London. First, he went to enhance his knowledge and the English language. He sought to have further study on Antonio Morga's Suceso de las Islas Filipinas to do research on the Philippine history and to continue to write for La Solidaridad in defense of his people against the Spanish tyranny. Rizal then met Dr. Reinhold Rost, a librarian of Ministry of Foreign Affairs in England and also an authority on Malay languages and customs. Dr. Rost was the one who allowed Rizal to undertake research at the British Museum in Brussels, Belgium. On January 28, 1890, Rizal left Paris for Brussels, Belgium. He was accompanied by Jose Alberto when he moved to Brussels. When Jose Alberto left the country, an engineering student, Jose Alejandro stayed with Rizal at the boarding house owned by Suzanne and Maria Jacobe. Aside from that, the cost of living in Paris, which was too much, Rizal cannot focus on writing his second novel, El Filibusterismo, because of the social life in Paris that interfered with his writings. While doing the chapters of the novel, he continued to write articles for La Solidaridad, and they were: first, A la Defensa. On April 30, 1889, and his answer to an anti-Filipino writing of Patricio de la Escorora. Second, La Verdad para Todos, the Truth for All, on May 31, 1889, and his reply against the Spanish accusation that the Filipino officials were ignorant and immoral. Third, Vicente Barantes Teatro, Tagalog, on June 15, 1889. Fourth, Barantes, Ignorance on the Theatrical Art of the Tagalog. Fifth, Una Profanation, a profanation on July 31, 1889, as his attack against the friars for ignoring and not allowing Christians burial for his brother-in-law Mariano Herbosa. 6. Cruelty on July 31, 1889, defending Blumentritt from mocking and insulting attacks of his rivals. 7. Verdades Nuevas, New Truth, on August 15, 1889, that because of letter written by Vicente Biloc Sanchez saying that it performed were granted, it will start in destruction of peaceful ruling of friars in the Philippines. 8. Differences. On September 15, 1889, in response of attack of the article saying mean and bad comments to the Filipinos who were protesting for reform from the Spanish government. 9. Inconsecuencias. On November 30, 1889, to defend Antonio Luna against the attack of Pablo Merdias, article in El Pueblo Soberano, a newspaper in Barcelona. Number 10. Lianto A. Risas, Tears and Lauters, on November 30, 1889, as Rizal's way of saving the Filipinos from the Spaniards, racial and prejudice. 11. Ingratitudes, on January 15, 1890, in response to Governor General Whalers.
Why do I try?